State Senator Royce West, thank you so much for joining us. Why do you believe you are the stronger Democrat to take on Senator Cornyn in November?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. In this particular race, I have more experience, more demonstrated success on policy issues, and I'm the only true Democrat in it, as well as I'm the person that can bring the party together behind me as the top nominee in the state.
Why do you believe it matters that you've been a lifelong Democrat and you've criticized MJ Hegar for not being one?
Well, what I've done is put out the facts. When a person uses the Tea Party flag, when they contribute to their opponent, alleged opponent, would be in the fall, John Cornyn, and when they vote in the Republican presidential election or primary, that says something about a person's bona fides as it relates to being a Democrat. And so I think people need to know that. And from that vantage point, I've never voted in a Republican primary. I mean, if a person wants to vote in a Republican primary, that's fine. I have no problems with that. But don't sit up and say that you're a true Democrat and that you're the best person to represent Democrats after having voted in a Republican primary, presidential primary. We're doing away with Obamacare and restricting women's rights. We're on the top lists of all of the opponents pretty much. And then contributing to a person that you want to run against in the fall. I don't think that puts us in the best light to be able to be competitive.
Do you think that disqualifies her as a candidate?
You know, I don't think it disqualifies her as a candidate. I think she has a right to run. People have a right to know also what her background is as it relates to being a Democrat or a Republican.
MJ Hegar is on TV with an ad. She has raised more money. She's also gotten the backing of the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. What are you doing to overcome those advantages?
Well, you know the story of David and Goliath. I'm picking up more and more stones and throwing them. That's what I'm doing, and hitting the target. The deal is that they MJ and Senate Democratic Campaign Committee and independent expenditure organizations, I think, have placed over $1 million on TV in a runoff election. Okay, what does that tell you? It tells you that they're desperate in terms of finding the votes. I am going to get the votes and will be the Democratic nominee. Everything that we're doing, we're targeting exactly who we need to get out to vote, and we're based on feedback that we're getting from out in the fields. We're getting those persons to vote. They're voting early, and they'll continue to vote through Election Day. And we'll continue our social media campaign and telephone campaign in order to get those votes out.
As you know, last week during your debate with MJ Hegar, she accused you of, well, she said you, quote, became a millionaire in office and that you've been, quote, legislating in your own best interest. What was your reaction to that?
Well, again, if she says that an African-American man that came from the projects of Dallas, 4968 Hampshire Police, has done everything that he should do to be successful, and he became successful, then, shame on her. She really doesn't understand how Black lives matter and what we have to do in order to overcome a lot of barriers, and I've overcome those barriers. In the terms of her accusation about me legislating for my best interest, I had no idea what she's talking about. Just like when she stood up and said that I've been asked over and over again whether I would divest my assets once becoming a senator. No one's ever asked me that. And of course, I'll do whatever is legally required for me to do. I make no apologies for working hard, hiring people in the community, getting the very best people to work in my law office, and they do a great job based on what our clients tell us. The type of law practice that I have today is the same type of law practice I had before becoming a state senator. You, as well as I, know that the state senate is a part-time legislature, and persons have to work in order to make ends meet.
And so what would you say to those folks who may have concerns based on what she said?
What I would say to them is ask me the specific question that they have concerns about and hear what my response is. And then based on my response, make an intelligent decision in terms of whether they support me or support someone else.
If you were a U.S. Senator today, what would you be fighting for as it relates to the response to the COVID-19 pandemic?
I would be fighting for the following. Number one, I'd want to make certain we repatriate manufacturing of our PPE. I think we're doing some of that now. And I want to make certain that we would also repatriate the manufacturing of the ingredients for prescription drugs that we need here in this country. I would, in terms of the issue of stockpiling, I mean, I think Jared Kushner made a statement. I don't know whether he was serious or not, but when we needed ventilators and things like that around these various states, he said in a news press conference that that's stockpiles for the federal government. Well, it's not. We need to make sure we have clear rules as relates to how we distribute that. And also, we now know that in terms of one of the institutions that has been adversely impacted by COVID is our educational institutions. From that standpoint, we've got to make sure we have connectivity. There are a lot of urban homes and rural homes with no connectivity. We need to make sure that we do that. I can go on and on about a 10-point plan that we have on our website right now. If you're talking about unemployment as an example, we need to begin moving to the green new economy. Those persons that are unemployed, that can't be reemployed, we need to make sure that they have the training that's necessary in order to get jobs in the green new economy.
Does the green new economy interfere with the gas and oil industry in Texas?
17% of the people employed in the state of Texas are employed by the oil and gas industry. And I'm going to be very mindful of that. Before we can move towards the green new economy, we've got to make certain that our oil and gas industry and its employees are taken care of. All right. Now, will there be some transitions? Yes, there will be transitions. We have some of the companies, oil and gas companies right now, talking about, climate change and what we need to be doing. And I want to make certain that I sit down with them and get the best advice possible on these issues.
One more question on this. Are you talking about really abandoning oil and gas and going to more green energy? I know Texas right now is the #1 source for wind energy and has been for a while. So take me through that, if you will, please.
I think that there is a ability to have mixed use in terms of our energy. I think that green energy needs to be the dominant energy, and the reality is that all of us know that climate change is real. It's not something that's fictitious, but we still should be able to have some fossil fuel in that mix. Just like you said, we're #1 in the country as it relates to wind energy. And I'm glad to have been a part of that in terms of making certain we stood up those windmill farms and put that energy into our grid system so it can be utilized. What I do know is that we've got to do a better job of even that, being able to store that energy so when we have an overcapacity, that it's not just kind of quote unquote bleeding off from batteries and things like that, that it's stored and we can put it into the system when needed. But I still say that there is a role for oil and gas. There will be, but I do believe that we need to make certain that green energy becomes the dominant energy of the future if we're going to save this planet.
If you were senator today, what reforms would you be fighting for with regards to policing?
Some of the things that are being considered right now in the House bill, I don't really know what's in the Senate bill, okay, because I have no real clear understanding of what's going to be proposed. And what I do know as a result of being a legislator in the Senate, you got to be able to come up with something both the House and the Senate will be able to work together on and get out of a committee. And whether that goes far enough, I don't know. You got to wait till the Senate gets its bill, wait till the Senate considers the House bill, and both houses come together in the Conference Committee to come up with something. What else would I want in the bill? I think that most people that are listening to this particular program would agree. We don't need to have 50 different standards in terms of when deadly force can be used by police. We should have one standard, and that standard should be a law that's adopted by every state in this country. So there'll be transparency of when deadly force can be used regardless of what state you're in. We need to make sure we also have policies, uniformity in terms of policies, in terms of the use of deadly force. I'd put those in there. I'd also begin looking at the issue of qualified immunity, as it was done in the state of Colorado. and Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals also began talking about the use of qualified immunity. So those issues need to be debated again. Has qualified immunity outlived its usefulness in the form that it's currently in? When people start talking about defunding the police, you recall, and we're on the anniversary now of the shooting in downtown Dallas, where we had brave police officers that were killed. The chief of police at the time was David Brown. Jack, I think you were part of this. He came out in a press conference and said, what are we requiring of our police? Are we requiring too much of them? Are we asking them to be social workers? We're asking them to be mental health experts. We need to clearly define what the role of the police department is. And to the extent that they're doing things outside of that role, those monies should be reallocated to experts that can handle those things.
Let me ask you this, as far as the somber anniversary that we're speaking on today, if you were to take away qualified immunity, are you worried that people will no longer want to serve as police officers? As you know, the Dallas Police Department went through a tough period of having fewer recruits. They've turned that around. Is that a concern that you would take that desire away from people if they felt that they were under the microscope all the time and would not have at least some protection?
What I think that has to be taken into consideration in the discussion. I didn't say we need to take it away. We need to make certain we discuss whether or not in its current form it needs to continue to exist. There needs to be a thorough discussion about qualified immunity, given the history of when police were first utilized in this particular country, and also that of qualified immunity. But you're right, that must be taken into consideration in any discussion that we have in this state and this country concerning qualified immunity.
Wanted to just touch on one thing that you had said before, and that is the Republicans in the U.S. Senate came out several weeks ago with their bill. The Senate Democrats did not let discussion go forward. Looking back on that, do you think that was the right decision? The Democrats did not want to go forward with even discussing the bill that was brought forward by the Republicans. They said it wasn't serious enough.
Well, and I must admit, I have not looked closely at the Senate bill, okay? And to the extent that the Democrats didn't want any discussion on it, I think I briefly heard on one of the news stations, probably CBS, okay, that the reason was because of procedural voting reasons. And I didn't get into the procedural votes issues. I pretty much was focusing in on the House bill as opposed to the Senate bill.
And again, one last question, Senator, and that is your message to voters during this runoff. What would that be?
Well, my message is this. You're looking at a man that served in the state Senate for the past 27 years, has demonstrated experience, and you can kind of look at what a person's done in the past and see what they're going to do in the future. And if you look at my past legislative successes, you'll see that I have represented the issues important to Texas, and will do the same thing in the U.S. Senate. You've got to look at my experience. You've got to look at my references. Most Democrats in the state of Texas have endorsed my candidacy. I have Joaquin Castro, Sheila Jackson Lee, Al Green, Congressman Eddie Bernice Johnson, Congressman Mark Vesey, all in the congressional delegation that have endorsed my candidacy. When you begin to look at the State House, 49 of the 69 House members have endorsed me. All 12 of us in the U.S. in the State Senate have endorsed my candidates. And it's not because I'm just Royce West, but they know the work that I've done. I've been able to bring Latinos and African Americans and young Democrats together, the Texas Tejano Democrats, the Mexican American Democrats, the University Democrats, and many of the different clubs, as well as the American Federation of Teachers, Communication Workers of America, Steel Workers, and the AFL-CIO, as well as numerous newspapers, major newspapers and regional newspapers around the state. And so with that background and my involvement, my friends, in the Democratic Party, my demonstrated involvement, you'll know that I'm a true Democrat in this race. I never voted in a Republican primary, presidential primary. My opponent has. I've never contributed to someone I'm running against, my opponent has. I've never been a member or flown the T flag, my opponent has. You've got to make your mind up as to whether or not Royce West merits, given my involvement in this party, to be the Democratic nominee for the United States Senate, or whether my opponent does. I'd ask you to make certain that your choice is Royce.
State Senator Royce West, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jay.
TLC's Say Yes to the Dress kicks off its latest season, helping brides impacted by the coronavirus.
Hello, beautiful Melissa.
Oh my God.